inside. Goes Charles Leclerc on Max Verstappen. Oh, and did that catch Max Verstappen napping a little bit? Because he certainly wasn't expecting Charles Leclerc to come down the inside. That was a brilliant move.
Welcome to that F1 show. How you doing, everybody? That was Crofty commentating this week's 2022 Austrian Grand Prix. And I said this last week, and I think I said it most weeks, but what a race. That was great. Two back-to-back crackers.
I am fully believing that the championship is properly back on again after RedBull looking like they were just going to pull away with it. But yes, a little bit of belief that it's could go all the way.
I know. I was talking to a friend last night, who he thinks Perez could win this year.
Okay.
Which that was my reaction. It was sort of like, I can understand that he has a chance, but I just don't think Red Bull would allow it. I don't think he'd ever get to a position unless there's just engine trouble. For Verstappen, I don't think they would ever let him.
If Verstappen was a good bit behind, I think that
100%. Yeah. But he's thinking his sort of rationale
talent is going to beat.
Well, his rationale was they'll both just run away with it, and at the end of the season
they'll be close. So
they'll just Red Bull will just let them race, and he thinks Perez is better.
Ask him again now after today's race.
I know.
I genuinely feel that Sainz thought he has a good chance this year after his form and how he's been doing second, first. Sprint race, decent sprint race. Like obviously just backed off a bit or flat spotted one versus tyres and that. But I think that today he showed that he sitting there. It's just like because that's not a look and a posture of got it that I didn't get third place today or second place today. That's more than that. It's more of a I think I'm now behind again. Whenever he pulled it to 11 points from within Charles, now it's like it's a good bit. He's a good bit behind. So
what would be like 36 or whatever now if it was 11. So bummed for him. Obviously, I suppose start with. Do you want to talk about the sprint race a little bit? I didn't see much of it. Did you see it?
Yeah, I seen it. I seen it all. Good. I love the sprint race. Yeah. I really do. I love the style of it. I love we've talked about this before. No point in repeating, going over and saying that it's so much better than another Friday practice session, but it is. It's so much better. So I just love that. There's a good bit of drama. The stuff goes on. One of the obviously Ferrari could have been a lot smarter in slingshotting each other to try and get Verstappen, but it added a good bit of a drama at the front.
So it started Verstappen won because he qualified fastest on pole, then Leclerc, then Sainz. Yeah. And pretty much from the get-go, Leclerc and Sainz were battling for second and third, and that just allowed Verstappen to sort of
Verstappen off the line, Verstappen knew Leclerc was on him, so squeezed him, and Sainz just had a good run up the outside of the first corner, so that's what let him jump into second, and then he thought he had a good chance at Verstappen up into, they call it turn 3 because there's a slight bend in that whole straight, but it's really the second main corner, and that's where he was too far out, and then Leclerc got back, and then that's when it started the little battle between the two of them, and that's probably the first time on track that we've seen they're now close in championship and they can properly now race and go for this. So really good. Probably going to see a lot more of that, I'd say, in the races to come. But one of the main things I think that stood out to me was there's a little bit further back in the field was Albon got a 5-second time penalty for pushing or squeezing Norris off the track. So this is one of the things that I've seen today, even before the race. A number of the guys commentating were saying how it's just so hot. It's so harsh. We've seen moves like that pretty much in the Formula 3, Formula 2 races that
all of last year.
Exactly, all of last year. You remember Brazil, Max and Lewis coming up, and yes, they both went off, but then there's been other times as well whenever there's been no room left, and it's just like, well, I stayed on the track, you didn't. Even we talked about it last week. Obviously, Mick Schumacher got his first points at Silverstone, but there's a time whenever we know the last 2 laps, whenever him and Verstappen, I mentioned that Verstappen's driving style slightly went back to his style last season, where he's a wee bit dirtier and didn't give him any room coming up after Brooklands.
Yeah.
So at that point of Silverstone, it just looked like he wasn't like there. Perfect example again, could have been a 5-second penalty, but they didn't do it. Gave Albon one, and I just think it was harsh. And I think Williams, when you look at I think it's probably one of the, not the biggest shocks this season. I thought Williams would have done a lot better. They're sitting on 3 points at this stage of the season. You would have think with new owners, and they came in. They didn't even start this, like they've been in. They brought Albon back. They've done this. You would think that they would be wanting more than this, and I
think it's a testament to how good George Russell was for them.
Yeah.
Like how much he pushed the team.
Yeah.
To get even just that off the bottom spot.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Albon has done well, but that I just think it was harshly done on him, the 5-second penalty. But that's one of the only. There's other things obviously happen within the sprint race, but that's one that really stuck out.
Yeah, fair enough. We probably won't touch on it too much, but one thing that was very prevalent in today's race, or yesterday, or whenever you're listening to the podcast, was the stewards were very strict. Obviously, the main issue was exceeding track limits in certain corners. A few time penalties given, and a lot of black and yellow flags waved, which is not black and white flags.
Black and white,
which is exceeding 3 times, and if you exceed it again, you get a 5-second time penalty. So they were very strict. Just
to let you know as well, if you're watching this, a black and white flag is the one that is waved at the end of the race as well, called a checkered flag. So most people will be like, black and white flag, that means they finished. But it is literally just 4 squares, 2 black, 2 white. But yeah.
So track limits, basically, there's a white line that governs the track, goes around the whole thing, and basically on a corner. So I think it's all corners now. Last year it was like specific corners, but basically if all 4 wheels are past that line, you've left the track, and therefore potentially gained an advantage, and you have your time deleted for that lap. Yeah. And then if that happens 3 times, you get a black and white flag, which means you're on your last warning. If that happens a 4th time, 5-second penalty. Yeah. But that brings me on to, there was a couple of times throughout the race. So I understand in qualifying, it's simple. You understand if your track time's deleted, obviously if you're qualifying, you're just trying to set a fast lap. So that lap in particular is gone, and potentially the next lap, depending where it happens on the track. But do you understand they talk about during the race, they'll chime in and be like, you had that lap time deleted. Yeah.
So that means,
how's that relevant in the race?
If you get the fastest lap.
Okay.
So that's pretty much what they're saying. They're saying your lap time is deleted because you went off the track too far. So your whole lap was deleted. So if they had set that little purple marker that says you've got the extra point, it's gone. So that's really what they're saying. The whole lap is disregarded. Yeah.
So that's really the only, other than the whole, obviously if you have your lap deleted, you've exceeded track limits on that lap as well, so that adds to that penalty. Yeah. But other than that, it's really just if you're going for the fastest lap.
Yeah, there's otherwise, exactly. Okay. So it's the only thing that would do. But it did happen. It happens. This is one of the tracks that this happens a lot, and sometimes I think can add to the drama of it, because like even during the race we were texting being like, oh my goodness, like he's only got one last of black and white. I was like, this is going to be 5 seconds here.
Well, at one point Leclerc and Sainz both had a black and white flag waved at them, which meant each, like Ferrari could have had 10 seconds added onto their race time, and if they had, Verstappen would have won the race. Yeah. So it adds that drama.
It's true, and I think that Perez got the same, and then he just, after that, a few laps later, he was just in the pits, so he was out. It's just like, because he's running last anyway, but you've seen a lot of it. And I think it was the F2 race I was watching. One of the guys had 10 seconds or even 15, so he got like 5, 10 seconds, and like just kept going, kept doing it. But yeah, they are ruthless at that track. It's also, if any of you do a lot of gaming or the Formula 1 one on the Xbox or PlayStation, it's the exact same thing on that. Like whenever you're racing online at that track, that they do the exact same thing with that time penalties so much. So it's a hard track to do it, which makes you think, why don't they just put that gravel a little bit more so it's a deterrent?
Yeah.
Like
Well, that was
to the curb.
I suppose it's mainly an issue on the bits where the curves were a lot wider. Like particularly the last corner was the main one in qualifying.
Which is a runoff, and I get why that's there, but there are other ones this whole weekend where they've been going over, and it is just gravel trap the whole way across, but they just got this extra little bit of green, which just doesn't even need to be there. If they're not allowing them to do that, just take it away. They know, like as every commentator always goes back and said, these guys can drive in Monaco where there's no runoff. They can do it here. They're just pushing as much as they can.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So the race as a whole, lots to talk about. Just constantly start to finish, there was something to go with. Let's start with Roger versus Allen.
Okay.
I chose Schumacher.
Yep.
You chose Magnussen.
I did.
They were running, I think, was it 8th and 7th they started? 9th and 8th?
6th and 8th.
6th and 8th? Oh, I thought they were...
No, 7th and 9th.
Okay.
7th
There's
and
a
9th.
person in between.
Hamilton was in between.
Oh, okay. Yes. So Magnussen in 7th, Schumacher in 9th. Schumacher obviously hopefully hitting a bit of form. Justified today that he is clearly in a bit of form.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good point.
Good point.
Do you know what? I'm happy for you. I am.
Thanks in the most condescending way.
No, just I really like Mick. I really do. He had a great race. Got a driver of the day as well.
He did indeed, yeah.
Next year when we do this, if the driver we picks gets the driver of the day, it should be a bonus point.
Ooh.
No?
We'll chat about it.
I think it's.
I'm open-minded, but I don't like it initially.
Okay. Could I have one today?
True. No. But obviously, for me, I see it as quite important because for me, it's worked out a wee bit better because I've used a few more lower ranked drivers than you have. So that was quite a low ranked driver used to get a point, which is huge. And it was great. Like we talked about it before, as like I hope, because last week we did it, and after turn 1, Roger versus Allen was over, whereas this week it ran right to the finish. It was great.
It did, and it was really good for us even watching it. Mm-hmm. Like
there's so much to watch because there was so much going on at the front.
And it was even put in the part of the race where there were 5 or 6 cars just racing all together.
That was phenomenal.
I think it was Guan Yu Zhou who was at the start. He was in old tyres. Him and Alonso were the only 2 who hadn't pitted.
Yeah,
You
Norris
then had
was there.
Magnussen, Norris, Schumacher was there. They all came in, and the start of the lap, Guan Yu Zhou was starting. He was leading it, and then he was the 5th car at the end of the lap, where they all were and it testifies how good they have changed these cars, that they can all follow closely. Otherwise, that was just a DRS train for the race. And they would never be able to get any closer than 0.4 of a second away to 1 second, and it just would have been boring. Yeah. Whereas they all got stuck in, and it was really, really good. But yes, well done, Mick.
Thank you. And it was a great.
Thank you.
I, on behalf of Mick, will accept that. But it was a great start because I suppose you actually asked me. You were like, as a Hamilton fan, do you want Mick to take Hamilton or whatever? And I was like, yes, I want him to take Hamilton. No, in my head, I thought eventually Hamilton will finish above them anyway, so it wouldn't matter. But yeah, he took Hamilton, but then Hamilton got him back, I think. And then there was this bit of back and forth. They weren't really on the TV that much. And then all of a sudden, they switched on the leaderboard. Yes. They didn't really show it on TV.
No. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And then, but it was sort of playing out. They were very close together. At one point, I think they were like, for a while, it was like 2 to 3 seconds in between them. But then Schumacher got the black and white flag. Yeah. And I was like, oh no, this is going to go down to the wire? Is he going to cut a corner? And all of a sudden, 5 seconds pins him behind Magnussen. Yeah. But no, thankfully. He done really well. He did really well. He finished 6th.
He finished 6th. I think Magnussen was 8th. Magnussen then they were saying at the end of the race had an engine issue, so was nursing that for a good part of the race as well. So I think that's why they were super impressed with how well he done. And then even in our text before talking about it, I was like, I nearly went for Ocon because of started well, had a great race, and did finish high. Had a really good race.
Yeah. I still would have won.
Did he finish above him?
I'm on the wrong one.
Where did did Ocon not get fifth?
Yes, he did. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong page.
That's okay.
He did.
He came fifth, so like that would have been. That's a good week.
Good drive for him.
Yeah, really good. Solid weekend because he done well in the sprint and done well. I think he is one of these drivers who just like will not talk about much, but just will, because it's similar to George Russell, who never hasn't won, but is just consistently doing well. Ocon's the exact same,
but except Russell's at a high-profile team.
Yep.
So Russell's constantly in the news. Yep. Last year was in the running for a high-profile spot, and also doing incredibly well with a lower-down team. So again, made headlines. Whereas Ocon's a great driver in a mid-table team.
Yeah.
Therefore, as Toto Wolff put it, Martin Brundle doesn't care. Doesn't care if they're for the mid-table teams. He just wants to speak to the top. So with that, pop quiz time.
Oh, okay.
4 questions, although there's a few answers. So 4 questions. If you're listening along, see how many you can get. Basically, testing your knowledge of the race, which for us will be slightly easier because it's just happened. For you listening midweek, try and rack your brains. So, question 1. Turn 4 caused Perez and Vettel to take a spin, but who were the 2 culprits?
Perez and Vettel. Vettel was Gasly. Perez. When did he spin? Was that the start of the race?
It was lap 1.
Oh, lap 1. Okay, must have been George Russell.
George Russell, yep. Gasly and Russell. Both got 5-second time penalties for causing it.
Yeah.
Although
Gasly,
at the time Russell was, you sort of maybe thought it was racing incident. Yeah. Like he hit the apex, but he just went a wee bit further out. I thought it was a wee bit harsh, but they sort of were like, no one was surprised at it in terms of the commentators.
Let's put a pin in chatting about Gasly at some point.
Okay, grand. I'll come back to that then.
Might be another race week or non-race week.
All right, okay. Well, then in that case, then sort of what I was going to say was, since Russell got penalised for it, it was a no-brainer whenever Gasly, because it was the exact same thing. If not, Gasly
I just
was
mean
a bit
Gasly's
worse.
form in general.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Let's chat about
Let's do
it.
it. So, one point for you.
Yes.
How many DNFs were there today, and can you name them? I suppose you get the answer by naming them.
Okay. The Perez. Bottas?
Nope.
Oh, I thought Bottas was... Can I just say...
Well, you know one other guaranteed.
2? One other guaranteed?
Well, you know there's definitely
Sainz.
one. Yeah,
Sorry,
okay.
of course. There is one more, but I can't remember who it is. Because I remember seeing 2 out at the bottom, but I forget. I've seen Perez and...
can you get it listening before Roger can? If Roger can? I'll give you 5 seconds. 4,
Latifi.
3. Yes!
Is it?
Yeah! So 3.
You know what? I just hadn't seen Latifi all race. I was like, he's probably at the back.
3 DNFs. So Perez first, Latifi, and then Sainz. Obviously, tragically at the end. Nice one. I'll take the Bottas away from you and let you have that one. So 2 from 2.
Okay.
Easy one. Who had the fastest lap? Maybe not so easy.
I know, because it was... Sainz had it.
10 seconds.
Verstappen.
Yes.
Verstappen got it. 19 points. He finished on that. That's why.
Verstappen got it. And
Sainz was on it. Yeah.
Last question. So you've got 3 out of 4. Can you nail it? How many teams had both cars finish in the points? Again, you can obviously talk through it.
Ferrari didn't. RedBull didn't. Mercedes did. Alonso didn't, so they hadn't. Haas did. And who finished after? Who finished? Oh, you can't tell me, can you? Of course you can't. I'm going to say 2 because of that. I don't know who finished lower down.
Okay. So 4. Alonso came 10th.
Did I? I thought he got penalised in the end.
Well, on the official F1 standings.
I'll be right.
Yep, he's
I
in
heard
10th.
that he had time penalty. I was like, oh man, that's just going to put him. And he also pitted a double pit stop, consecutive laps, because he hadn't the tyre on properly. So for him still to finish 10th is impressive.
So Mercedes 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Alpine 5 and 10.
Yeah.
Haas,
Yeah.
Schumacher in 6th, Magnussen in 8th, and then McLaren.
Okay.
Lando finished
No way.
7th and Ricciardo finished 9th.
Wow.
So 4 teams.
Wow. I got that one well wrong then.
So 3 out of 4 though. It was decent,
Yeah,
and those were like you had to work them out. They weren't straightforward.
Happy with that.
On to the race.
Yes.
We're back to the race. What was your... I suppose we'll go to what we started. We'll talk about Max and Leclerc and I suppose Ferrari against Verstappen.
Just clearly seen that, well, first of all, the pace, tyre degradation looked like on the Red Bull was worse than Ferrari with Verstappen coming in, which I seen pretty early for him. And then whenever he came out, you could see he was catching them, but after 13 laps was just going to eat his tyres again. And then how quick he pitted for his second stop, I was just like, it's a 1-2 for Ferrari today. At that point, you sort of could feel it. You could see whenever
they were so fast in comparison.
They really were.
Verstappen at one point complained. He was like, in one lap it's my left front, and in another lap it's my back right. Like there's no pattern here that I can correct.
I know. If you go back to, I think I'm going to say it was Baku, so Azerbaijan Grand Prix, whenever both Ferraris DNF'd, Red Bull got a 1-2, and you looked at the championship table and you're just like, they're so far ahead. They went on, I think, after that to Canada, I think I'm going to say. Okay. And they Martin Brundle interviewed Christian Horner and said, it looks like it's now between your two drivers who's going to win this thing. And he said, you can see that Ferrari were so far ahead and we were so far behind. It can all change. And I said, even I at that point was just like, no, we're too far in the season now for this to all change. Red Bull are too strong.
Yeah.
That's why I started this podcast at the beginning saying the championship's back on. I think if Ferrari, just for anyone who hasn't followed Formula One for a good few years, if you say you've been watching 2-3 seasons, you'll know that Red Bull are particularly strong at the Red Bull ring, but Mercedes and Red Bull have always had it. Ferrari have never been good at this track. Their last, as in whenever I say never been good, they have won before. Their last win was with Michael Schumacher in 2003. So 19 years since they've won here. So it's not a track that has ever suited them really. They have won, they have been good, and they finished in decent places. They've just never really been the team that you think, oh, this is designed for them, it's going to be good. So I think Red Bull thought, we've got this one. They will be good at... Christian Horner said they'll be good at Silverstone, they'll be good in France. They thought they would have the upper hand here, and they just didn't. So that's why I think it's great. Yeah. So so good.
French
pace.
is next. So if Red Bull thought that Ferrari would be good in France...
Yeah, and if Ferraris keep their pace and do that, I think Mercedes, because Mercedes is similar, they done well at Silverstone. So I think it could be a 6-car race.
Yeah,
in France.
No, absolutely.
Which would be incredible.
Yeah. I can't wait. It's going to be great. And unfortunately, there's a break next week, and then the French Grand Prix is on the 24th of July. But back to sort of the race between. We suppose there's not much to talk about outside of that. But that moment was Leclerc coming up behind Verstappen. Clearly, had the pace on him, but who knew when it was going to happen? And the commentators were unsure. Sort of, Crofty was like, Verstappen didn't have a clue that was about to happen, and Brundle was like, oh, he knew it was going. He just left the gap, but it sort of came out of nowhere. The amount that Leclerc underbraked to get, he flew down that inside and was able to control it.
He did.
It was such a good moment of the race, and just good racing.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
You obviously have all the help from DRS at different points, and you have fast, some engines are just stronger and faster than the others, but racing comes down to, Hamilton said it before, racing comes down to who brakes later.
Yeah,
that's how races are decided. So it was such a good moment.
It was
great. Since we talked on Mercedes, they obviously didn't have as good a weekend as they were hoping for. Actually, going into Sunday, they probably finished way better than they were hoping for,
sure, yeah.
finishing third and fourth.
Yeah.
But in qualifying, both Mercedes had pretty heavy crashes,
Yeah.
which destroyed their sort of rear wings. And then Toto Wolff said they brought very minimal replacement equipment here, so they actually had to put on old old rear wings, which were not designed for this race and the spec they wanted. So there was more downforce. I think there was maybe I'm wrong in that element. The rear wing couldn't be adjusted to what they needed for this race perfectly. Therefore, they had less. They were slower than they wanted to be. But things worked out well. Obviously, Perez and Sainz not finishing the race, so it ultimately didn't matter because they were never going to finish second or first. So third and fourth for Mercedes is huge.
Really good. It's got it for Sainz.
Yeah,
like, it really was. Like that's.
I think everyone is
four DNFs. Yes, Melbourne was his fault, but like other ones, just like Baku engine, today engine, like where would he be in the championship had he finished both those? He was running second in Baku. He was running, could have got. So I said to you before we start recording this, I think Sainz would have won today, simply because of he was taking over Verstappen, just about to take over Verstappen at the point when his engine went. So he would have done it that lap or the lap after, and he would have had the same pace. But Leclerc obviously dropped back so much because of the issue with his accelerator pedal. Mm-hmm. So in that point, I think Sainz would have had passed him, and I think it was his win, but we will never know.
We'll never know. Part of me almost thinks that, so there was the virtual safety car, obviously, and it all happened after that.
Yeah.
And I was part of me thought, when the cars slow down to a certain limit, or the race changes, or the rhythm of the race changes, does that allow for certain elements to maybe start to fail? Maybe I'm reading too much into that. Would his throttle have caused issues if the rhythm of the race that he just had
kept going? Yeah. Something could. And they say
he would have only won if that problem did persist.
Yes. But they also said that it looks like something has either come loose or has been picked up, got inside, and has got stuck. So it could have come from something. Also, they both went on to mediums, and Carlos said the hards are so much better than the mediums. He said he felt more comfortable in them. So Leclerc could have been similar. They might just have not.
And they had much younger tyres than Max as well.
Yeah.
So,
but Max and Leclerc were obviously, they pit at the exact same time after virtual safety car, so had the same age of tyres at that point. But I just think that I all of it is a guesswork. But I think Sainz. My opinion is I think Sainz could have won that race today.
Fair enough. Which then changes everything, because as you said, Sainz was maybe 11 points behind him.
He was. Would have probably got the fastest lap. Yeah. Because he held it at that point.
Yes. That's very true. So that would have been, Sainz would have been, if Sainz had finished the race, he would have been third in the driver's standings, because Perez didn't. But since they both didn't finish.
And even for the constructors, for Ferrari catching, like today was a big race for that, but I think Red Bull have got off light.
Because the constructors is Red Bull at 359 points and Ferrari at 303.
Yep.
So
at the same point,
could have been a
fair
good
play
dent.
to Red Bull. You've got to be there. You've got to.
100%. That's what Mercedes' game plan is.
Yeah.
This season is just be there.
Yeah.
Be there to pick up the podiums whenever Perez and Sainz don't finish.
Yeah.
And they're doing well. Like they're clearly in third. They're on 237 points, and then McLaren are fourth. Actually, McLaren and Alpine are tied fourth at 81 points. That'll be a good race throughout the season.
Yeah. As
the season goes on,
Alpine will take it.
You got to think so,
Yeah.
because that's purely because Ricciardo finished 9th and he's not, or 8th, and he's not going to finish 8th.
Also, Alonso is I was going to say pre-season. That's wrong. Early first 5-6 races were just, they were super for him.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of his driving style, but just because of things with the engine and things that were happening. So I think that they will definitely, I think they'll take it. Could be wrong, but I'm going to say it now.
And who knows where Mercedes will end up?
Yeah, no, they'll keep third.
Fair
I'd
enough.
say.
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I think they'll
Go fourth.
Yeah. Looking at the points as I was saying that, I was like, no, there's no odd chance of them finishing above third.
Yeah,
Because
we're near halfway.
yeah,
Must be after France. It's the summer break, which is
yeah.
halfway.
Well, what there's 20. Where's
My prediction
where's
is
my-
so wrong. Remember beginning of the season, we had to write down our first, second, third.
Yeah.
I'm so wrong.
Where did I put that? I think it's over there. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
It's
9, 10. That was the 11th race this season, and there's 22 races this season because there's no Russian Grand Prix. So yeah, we're halfway.
yeah. Wow, that's
Class.
good. It is good.
Unreal.
No race next week.
No race next week, and then
I had a question came through on our social media from a friend, Rob, talking about driver salary, and one person's in particular, but I'm not going to mention it now because I think it's a really good talking point, which we can do. So if any of the rest of you have any questions that you'd like us to discuss, send us a message on social media and let us know, and we can chat through those next week whenever we don't have anything on. And you want to talk about Christian Horner?
Christian Horner, and yep, absolutely, yeah, that'll be a good one. And that was the friend I was talking to yesterday about F1. I want to talk about something he said. He talked about. Well, I've been friends with him for a long time, and he always enjoyed Formula One. And asked me yesterday, he's like, "Oh, ever since I was 6, he's been watching it." So I asked him if he's been following it this year, and he's like, "Not overly." He's like, he described himself as an F1 purist, and I asked him what that meant. And we'll talk about that, but he was pretty much talking about the good old days. Like, he thinks things like DRS and KERS, when it came in, have taken Formula One away from what he liked about it.
Yeah.
It's sort of making just, if you have the better car, as opposed to better drivers finishing up. So we can talk about that.
Let's chat about that.
Yeah.
Because
So yeah, we'll call it an episode there.
yes.
Thank you all for tuning in this week. Let us know on social media at That F1 Show and on YouTube at That F1 Show. Just your thoughts on the race. Do you think
Sainz would have won?
Do you think Sainz would have won? Do you think Perez could oust Verstappen? Do you think Mercedes will finish 3rd or 4th? Yeah, let us know. And thanks for listening. We're back next week with no race. We'll be here to talk about certain things that we just mentioned there, and then back to break down the French Grand Prix on the 24th of July.
Yes.
Take care, everyone. Cheerio.